This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
Welcome back to the Epic Universal Podcast. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and this is the podcast where we cover the latest Universal news, rumors, and history. And as always, I'm joined by Eric Hersey, who only just recently has come out of the closet as a theater enthusiast. Is that correct? You and your bride went to go see Six in Pittsburgh?
We did. We went to the Benedum. I had no idea what we were going to go see. She said she bought tickets a long time ago, and she's like, hey, we're going to go. I said, yes. Okay. Did not do any research into this. She said she was very careful, and she said she did enough research to know that I would be okay with the show. I do like lots of musicals. I would have preferred to see like a Book of Mormon or Spam-A-Lot, but hey, Six turned out to be a pretty good show. Do you know anything about this show?
I was telling your bride, I listened to the Broadway channel on XM, and they play an awful lot of Six, which is has some surprisingly funny songs.
It was very witty and clever. I thought that was very good, and it's about Henry VIII's wives, from what I understand. So.
It is. They've all come back for one evening to sort of set the record straight. And right. If it makes it up this way, I think the national tour may have already come through Boston, but I will have to check this out. But speaking of which, though, we're here at this moment in the Epic Universal Podcast to talk about another Broadway show, which, by the way, you don't have to go to Pittsburgh. You don't have to go to New York. You can watch this from your couch. Because what is it? Broadway HD is streaming The Shark is Broken, which is a play about that takes you behind the scenes on the making of Jaws. And by the way, this play, Ian Shaw, who plays Robert Shaw in this play, you figured it out, folks. That's his son. Not only is that his son, but he's also the playwright, one of the co-playwright of this thing. This show, which debuted back in 2019, has gotten really strong reviews for its skillful mix of comedy and melancholy, but not everybody's thrilled. And in particular, Richard Dreyfuss, who played Matt Hooper in the original Jaws, isn't necessarily thrilled at the way he's portrayed in it, because he's kind of the jerk actor. And this is the thing. I grew up idolizing Richard Dreyfuss. I mean, I love his work, and again, so many of the films of the 70s: Goodbye Girl, Close Encounters, and Jaws. But I'm not going to lie, I've heard enough of about Mr. Dreyfuss, and it's just sort of like, it's like a jerk actor. It's like, yeah, I could see that. But anyway, that literally has begun streaming on Broadway HD. And if you're looking for, a fun evening at home, chase that down through whatever streaming service you use, queue that up and take a look. Let's see. But beyond that, we have a lot to discuss on today's show, folks. It was a crazy week for Universal News, and including the official names of the lands that have been announced so far for Universal Kids in Bliss, Texas. And also we finish up our look at the Murder, She Wrote Mystery Theater. But before Mr. Hersey and I can get to that, we have to acknowledge our show sponsor, which is, of course, UnlockedMagic.com. And if you're planning a trip to Universal Orlando or Walt Disney World, listeners to the Epic Universal Podcast are saving up to 12% on theme park tickets, including discounts to after-hours parties like Mickey's Very Merry, which, again, getting underway, November 7th, and Jollywood Nights, and that's getting underway on November 8th. So be sure to visit unlockmagic.com and save today. So, all right, getting now to the news, Eric. Okay, this is kind of making a bit of news this week about the potential purchase of Warner Brothers Discovery. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, Jim. So I pay enough attention to like these acquisitions and mergers, and there seems to be quite a few of them per year almost now. But we just recently had Paramount and Skydance merge, right?
Well, we did.
In the news, Paramount and Skydance had made an offer to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, which Warner Brothers and Discovery merged not so long ago. So it's just a bunch. But what has turned out that they were offering a $20 per share offer. So that was about a $49 billion to buy Warner Brothers Discovery, and everybody and their brother was talking about what this could mean. This would be big for streaming. Paramount Plus would merge then with HBO Max, but it turns out that Warner Brothers Discovery rejected this offer. And it was too low. Basically, the gentleman that's running Warner Brothers Discovery basically closed it down and says that they needed more. They needed to up the deal. So because of that rejection, lots of internet buzz and the rounds are going back around. Basically, all the people are saying, hey, this is a great opportunity for Comcast to jump in. Right. Now, rumor is that Paramount is going to sweeten the deal. And I think they're talking with Apollo Global Management, which is a company that they're going to try to work together with to try to acquire this Warner Brothers Discovery. But Jim, because of that, all of us theme park fans, or most of us theme park fans, do not want this deal to go through because we are salivating at what the potential could be if Comcast would buy something like Warner Brothers. So have you heard? So right now I know it's rumor mill. And there are a couple, channels that are picking it up. And prior to Paramount, even weeks ago, they were talking about the potential of Comcast. Do we think this is just kind of fan fiction that we're hoping as theme park fans? Or do you think there's some legitimate possibility that Comcast could be jumping in and saying, hey, we would love a bid at Warner Brothers Discovery?
Well, now where this gets interesting is even before Skydance acquired Paramount, and Eric, this was 18 months ago. I was hearing from friends out in LA that Comcast and Warner Brothers were having conversations. And one of the more intriguing reasons they were talking about this is if you actually get out Google Maps and see where the Universal lot and the Warner Brothers lot literally back up against one another. I mean, the only thing that separates them is the LA River, the floodplain thing that's been set up. They are in relatively close proximity. And the notion is that even from a real estate point of view, if these two were to form an alliance or formally merge, what this could potentially mean to the parks, what this could potentially mean to, for production out there. I mean, there's a lot of benefits to it, but you also, during the research phase for today's show, came across some other reasons why this would be a very good thing if it happened.
Well, I think all the streamers, anybody that's into streaming right now could realize that the merging of Peacock and Max would be relatively huge, right? It turns out that Comcast's existing partnership, like through Xfinity distribution, already makes it possible that they're already sharing like an infrastructure. So, and I pay enough attention to subscriber growth. I know we're all handling the streaming wars in its own way, but Peacock's basically they're not growing much, and I think they even they recently lost the WWE network, which had a decent amount of churn in that aspect. But if they could absorb Peacock, could absorb something like Max's 100 million users, that would probably make all the stockholders very, very happy. So I think it's possible just from that perspective alone, merging these two streaming networks would be relatively large. But with all of these things, there's going to be the whole antitrust and getting this to be taken care of.
Yeah. just what's gone on in the past couple of months.
Right.
It's a difficult time to try to get this sort of deal passed for a lot of reasons, but
right, lots of talk show hosts being canceled because
there we go. I didn't say that, but okay.
No.
So all
no.
right.
Well. With that being said, though, but from a theme park perspective, it would be pretty darn fantastic if they would make this deal, because Comcast owns theme parks and WB has quite the IP lineup, Jim. So I kind of pulled together some stuff, and it's funny because there are some similar names that seems like maybe Comcast is already licensing, which if they own, they might not have to. But what are some of the names that kind of stood out to you as like, hey, these would fit really good in a theme park, or maybe already have?
Well, all right. Let's start with the ones that have already been grabbed by a certain theme park with a giant globe as its symbol. We, of course, have Harry Potter. We have Scooby-Doo, who we were just talking about on the upcoming Fan Fest event out in Hollywood.
Right.
It's going to be teaming up with the Universal Monsters. And if you look back through the Universal Film Library, they made those two Flintstone movies back in the 90s. Beetlejuice has been in the Universal Parks for quite a while. I think they let the rights lapse there. But, taking the 30,000-foot view, we got the DC Universe, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. We got Looney Tunes. We got Godzilla and the Monster Universe. We got Willy Wonka, not to mention Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. And, everything from The Matrix, The Goonies, right down to A Christmas Story. So lots to choose from there. Now, important thing to understand is that if you look over at the Six Flags park, they've already got a lot of this stuff licensed. Now, mind you, those deals will eventually run out, and, this IP would be available, and we'd once again be back in that sort of Disney Universal Simpson situation, which, as we were talking about in last week's show, gets really interesting in 2028. But this definitely bears watching, and let's see how this settles out. Now, speaking about IP, just today, we learned about all sorts of Universal-owned IP that are going to turn up in the Universal Kids Park that's opening in Bliss, Texas, next year. So do you want to talk about what got shared today?
Yeah, lots of concept art out there. I mean, it's not, we've saw the overhead view for quite some time, so that picture's been out there, but we have a nice little graphic now that actually has the lands, the name of the lands, and some closer concept art, pictures. But we start off with the Isle of Curiosity. This is from Gabby and Gabby's Dollhouse, which a movie just released, right?
It did. Gabby's Dollhouse, the movie, is now, I want to say, in its third week in theaters. Has made 26 million domestic so far, and undoubtedly will run until the end of time on Comcast.
Right.
But there we go.
And you can meet her, but that looks to be like the Isle of Curiosity is where you enter, so it's kind of like hands-on imagination play area. Then we have the Shrek's Swamp, which we knew Shrek was going to be in there, so this seems similar to, I think, so far it sounds a lot like DreamWorks Land to me, because when you go down to DreamWorks Land, Gabby's meeting people right at the front, and then when you take a right in there's Shrek's land, but you can meet Shrek, Fiona, the triplets, all types of there is an onion carriage. That sounds fun. But then we have Puss in Boots Del Mar, which is a carnival style setup. It's you can kind of meet all of the Puss, Mama Luna, Perrito. Once again, these are all three things that are kind of already in DreamWorks Land. Then we get to Minions vs. Minions, which I was pretty excited. And this is like a Waterland, right?
Yeah. That going to be, and this is already a park that's pretty filled with water play. But this is water play on water play here, folks.
Right. Right. It's splash zones. They say nonstop chaos. So, but this is it's the purple minions and the traditional minions, right? That's what I recall seeing from the graphics. Then we got Jurassic World Adventure Camp, which is based off the cartoon, right? Is it the...
Yeah, Camp Cretaceous. In fact, we just found out that Camp Cretaceous Chaos Theory is coming back. I want to say next month with another season of the show. But yeah, again, what's interesting for me here is to see Universal recycling things. Like, for example, this is going to feature a baby dinosaur encounter. Which, by the way, this past summer, if you went out to Universal Studios Hollywood, they had the Jurassic World Reborn, somebody walking around with a teeny tiny dinosaur in a baby carrier. So, again, interesting reuse of stuff.
Right. And then it was Troll Fest. It's glitter and music everywhere. So you can meet Poppy and Branch. So there's like Playland and Critter Crawl. So there's some... there's Troll Fest there, and then we get to SpongeBob SquarePants Bikini Bottom, which is once again water, right? It's you meet everybody there, and then there's lots of splash pads.
And what's interesting about this is that everything else we've talked about so far, either through Illuminations, through DreamWorks, is straightforward. Universal. SpongeBob, on the other hand,
right?
This is a license from Nickelodeon, and it's kind of fascinating that this one, they felt strongly enough about SpongeBob that no, we need him in the mix. So, the one outside IP in Universal Kids.
Yeah. I mean, he's strongly associated though with Universal. So for the non-nerds, we're not going to know. we're gonna say they're all Universal owned in our brains. But Jim, any of these really stand out to you? I mean, I don't think it's anything. Or just in general, this theme park. So I was on Twitter before we got on, and there is, the haters out there that said this is going to be an epic fail because it's only for children. And then someone like myself, I'm like, no, this sounds great for children. I mean, so what is your initial thoughts? Is this going to be a home run, or do you think this is this something that they're gambling with?
Well, I mean, face it, we're already in the middle of, a Universal, experiences and parks thing. Face it, we've already got the Vegas thing, the Universal Horror Unleashed. That debuted earlier this year, and we're about to see the holiday iteration of that walked out post Halloween. This is a Universal that's looking over the horizon at the regional market and creating parks and experiences that, in the best of all possible worlds, families will take their small children to Universal Kids. And again, remember, this is not just a park, it's a resort. We've got a 300-room hotel that's being built here. The notion is they have such a good time, they then decide, our next family vacation, let's go to Orlando or let's go out to Hollywood. It's a smart play. It's just going to be interesting to see when this opens, how this works. And the other thing I think is worth noting here is this is a theme park and a resort that's tailored to families with young kids. And there's one line in here I find especially interesting about how this theme park, and tell me the last time you heard about this at a theme park, that we're going to have sensory gardens for quiet breaks and creative reset moments. The notion is your kid's a little too excited, say you want to take him over to the garden, take him over to the shade, let him catch his breath, and then take him back into the park. I mean, would you see a Disney doing that? I mean, it's just sort of like, no, we need a pin cart there.
Yeah. Well, I was hopefully reading that as that's where we're going to put the beds for nap time for the adults. Well, that's what I was hoping for, but I guess that makes a little bit more sense for the kids.
Okay, I'll try.
No, it'll be interesting. It's coming together. You can see construction photos online. You can kind of see some of the stuff being built. The hotel is already pretty much, the panels and stuff are painted. It reminds me a lot of a Legoland, and I mean, Legoland is very much. We were there last year or so. and it wasn't, I mean, it is very kid friendly. But I still had a good time. And it's one of those things where maybe this isn't your 3-4 day, I'm going to be there, multiple days, but I mean, it's in a highly trafficked area. Texas has a big population. It gives me a great reason to go down to Texas. So I'm looking forward to it. And I'm going to try to make it down there the first year it's open. While Miles is still somewhat in that age. I mean, an 8-year-old, he could still kind of appreciate. But I'm going to wear my swim trunks because, it sounds like you're going to get wet.
This is true. Okay, so and now, folks, we move to the contractually obligated mention of Wicked for Good, which is arriving in theaters next month. Now this is a perk for Prime members. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think Lauren will let me know about this. I think she mentioned it on an earlier episode. I want that too. She was going through all the perks. But if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can get dibs to the Wicked for Good at the IMAX screenings as early as November 17th. So when does the movie comes out on the 21st for everyone else? Is that right?
I want to say yes.
Yeah, that sounds right. So essentially, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you can get it early. So that is just a nice cross promotion. I imagine you have to, there's a limited schedule, so it's not everywhere in the country. But I would check your local listings for your IMAX, and if you're a Prime member, see if you can get in there. Get there a couple days early, I guess. So before everyone else, and you can spoil it, or you can essentially not have to worry about the sing-alongs yet. But I guess the soundtrack's probably already out.
Now, also worth noting that just today it was announced that the first Wicked film would be going back into theaters a week ahead of time. So if you needed to refresh yourself with, Galinda and Elfie's adventures prior to Wicked for Good, you have this opportunity.
You also have the opportunity. You can just stop by my house and hear my wife and daughter sing at any point in time. So if you want a D+ version of it as opposed to the one, but yeah, it's coming.
Okay.
And I'm sure we'll be talking about it next week and the following, and therefore all the way up until the holidays.
Right.
But speaking of holidays, we have a lot of stuff that we'll talk about with lots of holiday items released. So we didn't forget those, but I think we'll cover a lot of that next week on the episode because there's a lot of information that came out for Hollywood and Florida for the holidays.
Absolutely. One note, though, remember, on this podcast earlier this year, we talked about the Universal exhibit that will be opening at the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. Is that April? I want to say April.
I think it's February, Jim, but I could be wrong.
Okay, all right. This is why I do the show with him. He actually checks does the research. Okay. The interesting thing is that if you signed up for advance notice about when these tickets go on sale, that email went out this week, didn't it? I mean,
yep. I got my alert. Now we just got to sync schedules, Jim, and see when we're going to head out there.
We do. And in fact, I keep thinking that when we do this, we should maybe, just put word out to Epic Universal podcast fans that, we're going to be in town and maybe we could meet up there. But
I think it's a grand idea. I think it's a great opportunity to see some Universal stuff, non-Florida, non-Hollywood in this case. But we'll let everybody know in the coming weeks when Jim and I can figure out when we can cross paths and get both of the crew there. So
all right, that works. Okay, folks. So that is our news segment for this week. And when we get back from this break, we will talk or finish up our story of the Murder, She Wrote Mystery Theater at Universal Studios Florida. But first, this
episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and LifeLock has tips to protect your identity. Use strong passwords, set up multi-factor authentication, report phishing, and update the software on your devices. And for comprehensive identity protection, let LifeLock alert you to suspicious uses of your personal information. LifeLock also fixes identity theft, guaranteed or your money back. Stay smart, safe, and protected with a 30-day free trial at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
My marathon isn't about time. It's about my 26 friends with intellectual disabilities I'm dedicating each mile to. I'm Joseph, I'm running my first Bank of America Chicago Marathon for Special Olympics Illinois to help give my friends a place to shine.
Join Bank of America in supporting Joseph's cause. Give if you can at BofA.com/supportjoseph. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. References to charitable organizations is not an endorsement by Bank of America Corporation.
Finished training for the day? Time to fight post-workout fatigue with Core Power Protein Shakes. They're packed with 26 grams of high-quality protein to build muscle and electrolytes to help hydrate. The nutrition you need to help your body replenish, rebuild, and repair post-workout so you can power on to the next one. Champion your recovery with Core Power. Visit corepower.com to learn more.
And we're back, folks. Okay, so picking up where we left off last week, Eric, we were talking about how Universal Television in the fall of 1983 hears from CBS. And CBS executives have decided that they would like an hour-long murder mystery to be a part of their schedule. By the way, this is the TV season that would start in September of 1984. And more to the point, they'd really like a show by the guys who created Columbo, and that's Richard Levinson and William Link. Now, Levinson and Link, they want to keep their bosses at Universal Television happy. So they ask Peter S. Fisher, who's been the story editor on many of the Columbo episodes that they've shot on the Universal a lot, if he would like to come in with them and co-create this project. And so, again, very quickly to walk through, since Columbo's a guy, they decide that their next detective should be a female, and more to the point, they make this creative decision that what they're going to do is take noted mystery author Agatha Christie. They're going to take her and squish her into her character, Miss Marple, and this is how they come up with Jessica Fletcher, who is a mystery writer as well as an amateur detective. So, she's peanut butter and chocolate, folks.
Right.
Okay.
Did Agatha Christie get some commission on this? I mean, for
I'm
likeness
sorry.
kind of.
I'm sorry. You're breaking up, Eric.
No.
There we go. On behalf of the Universal,
Right.
legal department, I have no idea what you're talking about. All right. So, but they need a star to build the series around. So they originally write the pilot for Murder, She Wrote for Gene Stapleton, 3-time Emmy Award winner, best known for playing, Edith Bunker on All in the Family for 9 seasons. And Gene is tempted, but at the last minute backs away from the show. Now, it's the late winter, early spring of 1984. And what's important to understand here, folks, is that the television networks make up their minds which show they're going to put on in the fall in April and then announce them in May. So at this point, the clock, she's a ticking. And so, Levinson, Link, and Fisher are initially, damn. But then they hear through friends that Angela Lansbury, Tony Award-winning Broadway star, has decided she wants to take a break from theater and has put out a word that if the right project were to come along, she'd consider doing television. And so Levinson, Link, and Fisher just leap, throw the script at her. But here's the thing, Eric, they are out of time. They do not have time to shoot a full pilot, edit it, put the score under it, have it ready to show CBS executives. So it looks like, the opportunity is lost for the coming television season. But here's the thing, Angela Lansbury is such a pro that they're like, well, hang on, do we have to actually shoot the whole pilot? How about we do like just a 25-minute long presentation? I mean, and in fact, what they do, they take the schedule for shooting the pilot and they put all of these scenes up front that they could cut into what would be known as a presentation reel.
Okay.
And then what they do is they literally sit Angela Lansbury down on the set of Jessica Fletcher's Cabot Cove home, and Hubbard talks straight into the camera to the CBS executives about, who Jessica Fletcher is and what the community of Cabot Cove is like. And this is the thing, Angela Lansbury is such a pro. I mean, people forget that the very first film that put her on the map, Gaslight, back in 1944, and Angela plays this duplicitous housemaid in this thing. She's 17 years old when she shoots it. Eric, she's Lanny's age, all right?
Crazy.
And this is the thing. And after that, she just works and works and works and works and works. And more to the point, there is nobody more professional on the planet. I mean, for example, Don Hahn loves to tell this story about they're in New York and they are recording the songs for Beauty and the Beast. They have a full orchestra. They're set up in a professional recording studio, and Angela Lansbury is the last one coming in. In fact, she's flying in from LA to be there at that recording session. And she's supposed to be there, the plane's supposed to land at 1. She's going to be in the studio at 2, and they only have the orchestra till 4. All right. But, she's going to come straight from the airport, and they're going to have like 2 hours to do all of her stuff for, this animated film. And, mid-morning, they get news that Angela's plane had to make an emergency landing. All right. And, it's like, oh, geez, is she going to make it here on time? And so what ends up happening is that she does make it to New York, but she doesn't get to the recording studio till 3. And then she tells this terrifying story of, again, the plane depressurizes and they have to make this emergency. And it's any one of us having gone through that would want to go straight back to the hotel and, lay down in the bed and never do anything the rest of that day. And so Dawn is like, oh, Angela, I'm sorry. So sorry. All right, let's release the orchestra and we'll figure out, how to do this another time in another place. She's no, these people are here, and you've booked the room. Let's do this. And so, Eric, when you listen to Beauty and the Beast, the title song for that animated feature, and that amazing performance by Angela Lansbury, that's her first take. In fact, that's the only take. I mean, it's just one of these things where, to have gone through that terrifying experience, that exhausting day, and then to deliver the goods like that, where, just listening to that, you tear up. And it's like, that's the kind of pro she was.
Wow.
All right. So this is the thing. So, Angela Lansbury sits in the kitchen in Cabot Cove talking straight into the camera. So they get their 25-minute long thing. They hand it off to CBS and say, look at this. But they do a really, really smart thing, Eric. They hand it to the CBS executives at the exact same time they hand it to the advertising community. And the CBS people, well, that's good. And they, but the thing that acts absolutely, seals the deal is the advertising community immediately starts calling CBS and like, when can we buy ad time on the show? It's just
that's it. That's how you do it.
No, that's exactly. This looks amazing. Oh my God, we want to buy ads on this show now. And so CBS commits right there to 13 episodes for our Murder, She Wrote, which debuts on CBS in September of 1984. And again, one of the brilliant decisions. They paired it with 60 Minutes. So you went from watching 60 Minutes straight into Murder, She Wrote. And also the other thing that people don't really talk about Murder, She Wrote is that it had the same sort of secret sauce that The Love Boat did, in that when you watched the show, you got to see Angela Lansbury, and her guest stars were always, old movie stars or old TV stars. And it was one of these things where it's like, it was the television equivalent of comfort food.
Yeah.
And it did so well in the ratings that by October, CBS had reached out to Universal Television and said, we're picking up the back 9, which means a full commitment to 22 episodes for that season. And when we get back from this break, we'll talk about how Murder, She Wrote went on for 12 seasons, 4 TV movies, and a certain theme park attraction. But first, this.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Purina believes no one should have to make the impossible choice between their own safety and their pets. But nearly half of domestic abuse survivors delay leaving because they can't bring their pets with them. Through the Purple Leash Project, Purina is helping create more pet-friendly domestic violence shelters so survivors and their pets can escape and heal together. Visit Purina.com/purple to learn more.
This episode is brought to you by Tic Tac. Your boss is going off at you for missing a deadline and you swear the clock just moved backwards. Suddenly, you remember the pack of Tic Tacs on your desk. Now you're riding horseback on the beach, the smell of citrus in the air. And what's this? Your boss is sitting behind you, breathing heavenly fresh mint? Refresh your mouth and mind and share your good vibes with Tic Tac.
And we're back. All right, continuing the story of Murder, She Wrote and how it led to the Murder, She Wrote Mystery Theater attraction at Universal Studios Florida. All right, so here's the thing. Murder, She Wrote, hugely popular, runs for 12 seasons, 264 episodes, Eric, and again, those 4 TV movies. Not to say it always went smooth. In August of 88, and this is just ahead of season 5 of Murder, She Wrote. And Angela, at this point, she's 63 years old, and she reaches out to the folks at Universal Television and says, I don't know if I can keep doing this. I mean, this is a lot to ask an old person. And by the way, I bring this up because I'm 66 years old, all right? And it's just sort of, and I'm doing 4 and 5 podcasts a week. So right. suck it up, Lansbury, okay? Come on, move it along. All right, but the studio wants to keep her on board. It's a hit thing. So what they do is they agree, okay, how about this? What if we change the production schedule from 8 days to shoot an episode to just 7? And then they even go so far as for the next 2 seasons of the show, they do episodes where literally Jessica comes in at the beginning, comes in at the end, and we get to meet her friends like Private Investigator Harry McGraw and reformed thief Dennis Stanton and MI5 agent Michael Haggerty. And that's nice for 2 years, but by, and this experiment, as they call it, it ends in 91. And Lansbury now decides, well, all right, look, I'm going to take a more hands-on position on the show. So she goes from being not just the show star, she becomes its executive producer. And also what I love about Angela is she's a realist. Okay. So, again, they're in, ending season 7, and she turns to Levinson, Lincoln, Fisher and said, at this point, I think we've run out of people to kill in Cabot Cove. All right. I'm just saying. And more to the point, who in their right mind would invite Jessica to their house?
Right.
It's like,
at this point in time, yeah.
Every time that woman shows up, someone ends up dead in the garden. It's like, no, oh God, no, we're not inviting Jessica Fletcher. So this is the season of the show where literally Jessica takes a job in New York City. She joins the faculty of Manhattan University, and an entirely different set of people stop dropping dead in her presence. Anyway, 4 more years years go by. Murder, She Wrote gets renewed for its 12th season. And at this point, it's still the 8th most watched show on television for that year. I mean, the ratings have not dropped, but
that is insane.
It is. But here's the thing. CBS, looking at Friends, and it's like, well, how do we take out Friends? And it's like, well, why don't we try putting Murder, She Wrote up against Friends? And that's what ends up happening for the 94-95 season. And that actually really does ding the ratings and so what they end up deciding to do, rather than renewing the show for the 13th season, and more to the point again, they're like, look, Angela, we love working with you, and we're sorry we moved your show to 2 Thursdays, so we're going to move it back for its last couple of episodes on Sunday night, put it back with 60 minutes, and how would you feel about doing a bunch of Murder, She Wrote movies for us? And it's like, that seemed, she was very much on board with that ideal. So it's March of 1996, and Angela is on set for the very last time shooting the Murder, She Wrote TV series. Now, mind you, everybody knows they'll be back the next year to start shooting the TV movies, but this is genuinely bittersweet. She has, there's this whole cadre of people at Universal who have worked with this lovely woman who knows the names of everybody on the crew because they've worked for her forever.
Yeah.
And it's just that they shoot the last scene, and they all line up and applaud as she goes off the set for the very last time. And like I said, there were the 4 movies. After a year break, we got South by Southwest in 97, then A Story to Die For. They waited 3 years on that, and that was 2000. The Last Remand in 2001, and finally The Celtic Rizzle in 2023. And what was interesting is that Lansbury in May of 2011, sort of, it's like, if somebody wrote a decent script, I wouldn't mind doing one more Murder, She Wrote, reprising Jessica Fletcher. But by 2015, she was like, no, that's a bad idea. I mean, people have memories of that character as this vital, woman, and I would have to figure out how to play her older. Right. And it's just, better to leave, well enough alone. Now, mind you, in the middle of all this, we get the Murder, She Wrote Mystery Theater that opens at Universal Studios, Florida, June of 1990, and then runs at that same theme park through December of 96. In fact, Universal Studios Florida made the decision that, well, since the TV show is off the air, and again, that went out in May of that same year, it's like, we should probably shut this down. But for those of you who didn't get to experience this, and by the way, our editor, David Gray, was it his grandmother or his aunt he did?
I think it was his aunt. It did the Black Pearls line. So she must have. I watched it today, Jim. I watched it on YouTube. I watched all the rooms. It was pretty interesting. I mean, I could see it being. It looked like they carted you from room to room, but I'm sure we'll talk more about that. Yeah,
they did. Well, I mean, all right. The gimmick of the show, stage inside of Soundstage 44, folks, was that the executive producers of an upcoming episode of Murder, She Wrote, they came in. They needed help. And so it's a 25-minute long experience where, as Eric just mentioned, you move from room to room to room. And in each room, a certain portion of the post-production process is explained. You get to see demos of makeup, how sound effects are done, ADR, dialogue replacement, visual effects, and how all of that comes together when you get to the editing process. And the show was interactive. And again, volunteers were pulled out of the audience. And what made this especially fun was that, look, Orlando has a wonderful community of improv actors. Mind you, it's a relatively small pool of people who are really good at doing shows like this. So that was what was kind of cool about going to see the Murder, She Wrote Mystery Theater. Is it was very likely that as you were standing there, it's like, didn't I just see you at the Adventurers Club or in the Comedy Warehouse or on Hollywood Boulevard as a Streetmosphere performer. It was that set of actors, and they were really, really good and really, really funny. And more to the point, I think the show did an excellent job of explaining the post-production process. But okay, as we mentioned, Murder, She Wrote goes off June of 96, and Murder, She Wrote Theater closes December of that same year. Having watched this, was there a particular room or part of it that you really enjoyed, Eric?
Well, I mean, so obviously I'm watching off of good old VHS camcorders.
There you go.
So I was trying to get there were some bits.
Enjoy a lot of grain, all right?
Yes, it was beautiful.
Okay.
But no, I think it was fun when they would have the like a kid come up and growl, and then they would have it be King Kong, and then they would say, all right, we're going to add echo, and we're going to add reverb, and this and that. And of course, the King Kong screen is actually like now a whole actual roaring beast as opposed to the kid.
Yeah.
So it was pretty clever. I mean, I could see this being a fun show to do. And they still have elements of that kind of stuff. Even with, it reminded me a lot of the sound, the makeup show.
Very much so. No, you're right.
Yep.
You're right. Okay. Now, but again, Universal recognizes this is a fun show. We should figure out how to keep this going. So, leaving the physical plant, the setup of Soundstage 44 in place, July 10th, 1997, Universal Studios Florida opens Hercules and Xena, Wizards of the Screen. And in fact, Kevin Sorbo and Lucy Lawless actually showed up for the opening ceremony. And it's basically the same show celebrating post-production. That in turn runs at Universal through February of 2000. And then, Eric, Soundstage 44 stays empty for 4 years. It gets repurposed as a maze for Halloween Horror Night in 2003, 2004. But as we mentioned on last week's show, it eventually gets torn down in the spring of 2012 to make room for Transformers. The ride 3D and the Florida version of that attraction opens in July of 2013. Whereas Angela Lansbury... by the way, Eric, we are recording this on October 15th, 2025, and Dame Angela, we lost her 3 years ago this week, on October 11th, 2022, at the age of 96.
Man.
And, by the way, she worked for years after she finished doing The Murder, She Wrote. She was back on Broadway. In fact, won a Tony for her performance in Blithe Spirits and was in the revival of Stephen Sondheim's A Little Night Music. Disney fans, of course, remember her rather large cameo in Mary Poppins Returns as the Balloon Lady. Oh, by the way, that role was originally written for Julie Andrews. Not Mary Poppins, but literally the Balloon Lady. The idea was that Dick Van Dyke and Julie Andrews would appear in the movie, but Miss Andrews begged off, and Disney thought, well, who else could we get? And of course, let's get Angela Lansbury. But what I especially love about how this story wraps up is that Rian Johnson, the guy behind the Knives Out movies, was such an Angela Lansbury Murder, She Wrote fan that, do you remember in The Glass Onion, this was the very last film that Angela Lansbury did. He had her make a cameo in the movie as herself.
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
And by the way, worth noting, the third Knives Out movie, Wake Up Dead Man, Rian Johnson back to work, out shortly. So check that out. But anyway.
Wow, Jim, I did not know. We talked about this. We didn't know it was going to be much of a love story about Angela Lansbury. But I will tell you, Jim, and you probably don't know this, she's actually in my favorite Disney movie. I am a huge, huge fan of Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. It's my absolute favorite Disney movie. Watched that. I prefer it even over the Mary Poppins, and even watched it this week. Not necessarily in knowing that we're going to talk about much her. But yeah, Eglantine Price, love everything about it. And it's funny that you mentioned Julie Andrews, is that I guess they wrote Bedknobs and Broomstick and wanted Julie Andrews to actually be that, and she turned it down, and Angela got it, and then Julie Andrews was like, yeah, maybe I will do it. But Angela Lansbury already had the gig, and I'm very happy because like I've grown up loving her from that and that role.
Let me get one little twist on that story. Yes, you are correct. They did write that role for Julie Andrews. They were hoping to bring her back. She did turn it down. They reached out to Angela Lansbury, and after Angela had signed the contract, Julie wrote to producer Bill Walsh at Disney, the guy who had approached her about Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and said, I've changed my mind. And Bill had the awful job of saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry, but Angela's already signed the contract." And to tell you what a class act Julie Andrews was, she then sends a handwritten note back to Bill Walsh. It's like, what a lovely choice. Oh, she'll be wonderful. I wish all of, I hope the production goes great for all of you guys. And I'm so sorry we missed the opportunity to work together, but I'm sure you'll have a fine film. And it was like, that is the classiest damn thing I've ever heard. But same thing. I'm a huge fan of Bedknobs and Broomsticks. I love particularly that last 25 minutes or so where it's, a Disney special effects slapstick.
It's amazing.
It's hard to tell friends about, I love that part in the movie where the Nazis are getting their asses kicked by all the empty suits of armor. And people look at me like I have a head injury. But, it's like, but yeah, that's a great film.
No, but this was great feature. Thank you so much for putting this all together. And it was great to hear. I mean, I feel like I have to go watch Murder, She Wrote now and dust off like some of those memories, because I know I watched it. I just can't remember too much. But
all right. Well, no, I'm sorry, Eric. You have 800 Simpsons episodes to watch. You're going to throw 264 Murder, She Wrote on the pile?
I said one. We'll pick the best. We'll pick one that talks about black pearls, Jim.
All right. There we go. All right. And with that, folks, that will do it for this week's Epic Universal podcast. By the way, if you have topics or suggestions for future shows, please feel free to send those to myself and Eric through social media, or contact us directly at jimhillmedia.com. So with that, just want to thank you for listening, and Mr. Hersey and I will be back next week.